Hi everyone, and welcome to this State of the Game event hosted on the Nexus Aurora Discord server and live streamed on our YouTube channel for the first time. I am Ollie, also known as Megaton on Discord, and I am your host. Today I am joined with Cameron
Hello.
and Will.
Hello.
So, like I said, this is our first live stream event, so I am asking everyone to please be indulgent with me as I am still learning how everything works, OBS, YouTube, and everything like that. We will be starting very soon with our round of discussions where I present a press review of what happened in the last few weeks in the space industry and invite our participants to share their opinion. Feel free to share yours as well in the YouTube chat. A link to a related article will be provided in chat. So let's start with our first topic. And our first topic is about the futuristic space technology concept. Okay, I'm still trying to get the hang of it to post the links and change the topics. Um, yeah, and So the futuristic space technology concept, there was a new round of awards providing $5.1 million to 17 researchers in their projects by NASA's Innovative Advanced Concepts Program. And this includes a Venus atmosphere and cloud particle sample return mission, a portable and stationary O2 generator for Mars, and more. So the question I'm asking you guys is which project piqued the most your curiosity in the list that NASA provided?
Well, this is a really interesting grant program that NASA's run, and they've got some really interesting selections for this specific grant. In particular, what really piqued my interest here was the spacesuit digital thread. So this is effectively advanced scanning and manufacture of custom spacesuits to manually or to fit new astronauts. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but our old astronaut selection requirements were always limited primarily by the size of the vehicle we could transport people in and then the size of the suits, because the suits cost a huge amount of money to make. So all of our astronauts had to fit in a certain size of suits, and they could only be something like 5'6" to 6'2" or something like that as the maximum and minimum heights. So being able to provide customizable and rapidly manufacturable and low cost spacesuits is exactly what is going to be needed for sustainable space settlement and being able to send a lot of people to space and to other planets. So that's what really got my interest going. It's some real Martian movie levels of technology that's now coming out.
So it'll be able to be it'll be able to fit more people for potentially less money than right now it's like $50 million or something ridiculous per spacesuit. Sorry, $500 million.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, if I
Yeah.
recall, there was a problem with NASA's spacesuit for the Artemis mission, right? Maybe, do you think that could help?
I think I don't know how quickly this is going to come to pass because I think it has rather some lofty goals that by the time the Artemis missions are happening, I think we could definitely see some staging, some testing going on those missions. But as far as the fully manufacturable or creating the type of technology that can be taken on the Artemis missions for in situ creation, might not be there yet, but I am interested to see what their timeline is going to be.
Okay. And what about you, Will? Do you have a project that piqued your curiosity?
The coolest one on this is the spacesuit is pretty cool, but the Venus atmosphere and cloud particle sample return also sounds really cool, and I'm just reading the title.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they plan to send like a balloon in the Venus atmosphere to collect a sample of Clark particles. And I mean, we're not used to having Venus missions, right? They were just recently announced, I think last year, that there would be some missions to Venus, and
Hmm.
this could be another one of them.
Yeah.
I wonder, I forget when the last mission to Venus was, but if I remember correctly, what usually happens is we send a rover and then it lasts like 7 hours and then it just gets burnt
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just melts.
Well, NASA has a specific program called the Automaton Rover for Extreme Environments, and so that's a another advanced concept that's being developed by them, and I believe with JPL as well, to develop like a slew of analog robots, basically. So the Automaton Rover for Extreme Environments is meant to be like a wind-powered mechanical computer. So it is kind of using this caveman level technology to be able to power rovers on other planets, and then not only operate on those planets, but also then somehow get that information of what we're getting off of the planet as well. So developing those concepts to get into Venus, especially with like balloons and more uh, less load, high tech devices, is really cool to see, because I think there is a lot of really interesting science that we can get from Venus that we're just simply not able to do. It's one of the most unforgiving environments within the solar system to be able to get to, just because you can't really send rovers there because they last so little time. Just like you were saying, Will, it is a matter of hours. Like I believe the Soviets sent the rover there. It just doesn't last, and so there's only so much data you can even get during that time, if the mission is even successful in being able to touch down and be commissioned and establish a connection.
Yeah, I mean, Venus is the hottest place in the solar system, apart from the sun, evidently, but yeah. All right, so on to our next subject. Our next topic is about the Artemis mission. And the first article that I want to discuss with you guys is a press release about the Space Launch System. So the Space Launch System with the Orion spacecraft atop, both meant to be used for the first mission of NASA's return to the Moon, arrived at Launch Pad 39B at Kennedy Space Center in Florida for a final test. The upcoming final test, known as the wet dress rehearsal, will run the Artemis 1 launch team through operations to load propellant into the rocket's tanks, conduct a full launch countdown, demonstrate the ability to recycle the countdown clock, and also drain the tanks. And Artemis 1 is launch date is planned for May 2022. So this is a good sign finally for the space launch system, don't you think?
Yeah,
Definitely. I remember going down a rabbit hole a couple of years ago and being like, "Oh, this is so cool. I can't wait for it to launch." A few years later and we're quite a lot closer, but I
yeah,
guess SpaceX has spoiled us in how fast they get from idea to launch.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, and for those who've been around, well, most people can remember at some point when they became aware of the James Webb Space Telescope mission and how long it took to get that stuff into
Oh
orbit
yeah.
finally, which happened recently. And there's always that relevant XKCD comic about it, that it has been such a long time in coming, and that's the same with the SLS system. It's coming, uh, you know, not on time and over budget, but it is good to see. We have been spoiled, I think, by SpaceX, but finally getting that SLS system operational, even at whatever the end result is going to be, I think it's going to be a good step forward for just exploration in general. We'll always get good data by it, and I think it will serve uh, as quite a symbolic mission. Now, that being said, I still think it's going to be unsustainable, and I think that doesn't really come as a surprise to anyone.
Yeah.
But I think, I don't think anyone is ever not going to be excited to see a rocket, especially one the size of SLS,
Hmm.
complete a successful mission. That is something that really harks back to the Apollo missions, and I think it's going to be awesome to see, regardless of what the outcome is going to be in terms of its continuing use.
Yeah, and
It's like the space shuttle, which was originally supposed to be fully reusable. Then they're like, okay, let's make it a little less reusable. And then we made it to what the space shuttle was, with only the main shuttle actually being reusable.
Yeah.
Like, the original plans were so cool,
Yeah.
but
But we can't
Congress
say
does
though.
not like expensive rocket.
Yeah,
No,
and I'm glad
they did provide a lot of use though.
you brought the over budget and unsustainable topic into the discussion because I just linked an article about a report that was done by NASA's Inspector General that SLS is going to cost $4.1 billion per launch, which is more than twice its original expected cost. And this
Oh gosh.
translates to $58,000 US per kilograms launched to low Earth orbit if the expected payload weights remain the same. So for how many missions can this be viable, do you guys think?
Not that many.
Not that many. Can it at least
Um,
be viable for the whole Artemis program, Artemis 1, 2, and 3 missions?
It depends how you define viable, I think, because there is always, there's always something more coming back to this than just the cost that goes into it and the time and the development. Even beyond the extended economic, usefulness that comes from creating jobs and keeping the environment stimulated and the economy of space stimulated, there is a lot. There's a lot that you get out of this. You're inspiring the next generation of engineers and astronauts and all these people, and you're creating public interest in space. It depends what you mean by viable, but I think if you go by a traditional definition of viable, and I think most people would agree with this, I don't honestly foresee there being more than 3, 4, or less than a dozen launches of SLS, just because it is double the cost and takes this much effort and isn't reusable.
Yeah.
So I don't think people will want to see that, and I think especially in the US with the government, they're going to use that as not only a way to basically gain some extra popularity with their voters by saying we have companies like SpaceX, there are companies now like Rocket Lab and other new space industries. We shouldn't necessarily be developing public rockets anymore, or we shouldn't be pushing this. It's a sunk cost fallacy. We shouldn't be pushing this further than we need to if we can save the money. And I think it's an easy grab for a lot of politicians up for re-election to be able to say, let's not continue with the SLS. It's done its thing up until now. We want to change focus because I want to take this money out of SLS if it's going to be over budget and put it somewhere else.
Haha, we can make you pay slightly less tax dollars.
Right. Whether or not that's true, they can definitely say that. So
Yep.
yeah, it is a huge cost, especially now that we have those reusable craft, and you can't really fool them because SLS has been there for so long. It's not when we first began SLS development, we still weren't sure about reusability in general. I mean, there's a reason that we had shuttle and then we developed SLS. Maybe all of those management, engineering, economic decisions weren't necessarily the right ones, but they were the decisions that were made, even with the knowledge of programs like shuttle, which were also over budget. So they made decisions for a very specific reason, but new space just moves at a pace now that it kind of outpaces. If you're not working on a rapid development schedule anymore, you're going to get outpaced and you're going to potentially lose a lot of money. And if you are a public institution, politicians are going to use that as a way to gain favor with their constituents.
Yeah, I agree.
And apparently the Starship is apparently gonna cost I think it said 10 million per launch and not 4.1 billion.
Yeah.
So, and it's
Well, however long that takes to
reusable.
get down there, though.
Yeah,
But
it
at
still
least it
remains.
is reusable.
Yeah, but it still remains to be seen. I mean, let's
Yeah.
keep in mind that Starship with the booster still hasn't reached orbit yet. So
Hopefully soon, though. But
yeah, hopefully soon. Yeah. All right.
If you look at the first few years, so what's it been, like 5 years since Starship actually started development? And then 5 years into SLS, it was still a bunch of like drawings on a whiteboard,
right.
probably.
2011 was
But
when
we
SLS started.
Yeah.
But
Oh, we're about to launch here as well.
Yeah, launch of the last Starlink launch from SpaceX. We will
hopefully,
practically see the same thing later tonight.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah, this is interesting. And that also brings up, a lot of different topics. Starlink itself and
Yes.
how that plays into the whole new space economy.
Yes,
But
of course. And the competition between the mega constellations from each nation. This is quite interesting. But let's remain on Artemis for now because I still have a couple of articles to discuss with you guys. And one of them is the most recent signature of the nation of Bahrain on the Artemis Accords. So Bahrain has become the latest nation to sign the Artemis Accords, and they recently launched the Light 1 spacecraft, uh, which is one spacecraft that they made on their own. And I think this news is quite surprising considering that Bahrain was one of the countries that signed a memorandum of understanding with Russia in December 2021 to deepen their relationship. So what I'm asking you guys is this a sign of a country changing side due to recent events in Ukraine?
I mean, I don't know. I think that within this sphere, that the majority of reasonable people within space administration want peaceful exploration of space, especially when it comes to something like the Artemis Accords. So I don't necessarily see this as kind of a switching sides, if you will, because I don't necessarily see Russia as being big into this Artemis program yet, or into the same kind of sphere. Nor are they necessarily, they don't have accords saying the Artemis Accords of space war.
Hmm.
So I don't necessarily know it's a switching sides. It may have been partly politically motivated, but ultimately, I don't think Roscosmos could legitimately bring up a concern with Bahrain that they want to be able to participate in the Artemis program and peacefully explore space. I think it makes sense for Bahrain, which has its own ability to design and develop craft, to be able to not put all of its eggs in one basket and to be able to open itself up to some of the powerhouses that exist in both, the east and the west of Western civilizations in space.
Yes, yes, that's a very
Roscosmos
good
may
point.
be good at designing rockets, but I don't know if everyone saw, but the leader of Roscosmos was like threatening to shut off the propulsion that keeps the ISS in orbit, and he said, "Oh, it can't go over Russia, so it'll only fall into the U.S. or the European Union or the ocean." And then someone looked up where it was right now. Right then, it was in Russia.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that these threats should be denounced.
A,
That
yeah, and a little, or a little bit more well thought out, so it doesn't
yeah,
get ridiculed by some random person on Twitter 5 seconds after it's posted.
yeah, I don't think that's necessarily the thing. I think that um, we should thread carefully, and Roscosmos should thread carefully too with how they threaten other nations. And this is obviously a very sensible subject, so I don't want to go over it a lot. But yeah,
I mean, suffice to say, I think regardless of the current situation with Roscosmos, Bahrain's made a smart decision by
Mm.
saying that it wants to. I don't think there's exclusivity clauses within,
yeah,
the Artemis Accords. I think it makes sense for them to spread their cards out on the table and say we'd like to participate in as much as possible because it's good for Bahrain, it's good for their space development program, and it's good for space development for humanity in general. I don't think, even if Roscosmos might take a sniff at it because of the current state of affairs there, ultimately I don't think it has any ground, and I think Bahrain was right to do this, and I think they joining 16 other countries was a great decision on their part.
yeah. Thank you, Cameron, for bringing us back on track and doing my job. All right, we'll go to the last Artemis article I have for you guys, and it's some news from Astrolab. And Astrolab recently revealed their new interplanetary rover, and it's called FLEX for Flexible Logistics and Exploration. It is designed to transport cargo and people across the surface of the moon and eventually Mars. It can crouch down and lift payloads up, carrying the cargo under its belly. A full-scale prototype has already been built, and Astrolab test drove the rover in the California desert near Death Valley. The company hopes this rover will be used for the Artemis program in 2025 or 2026, depending when the launch is. For Artemis 3, I think. Yeah, that must be it.
That
So
looks really cool.
yeah, that's really cool, and I'm glad that we have our rover expert with us today, Cameron. So what do you think of the Flex?
I think my first impression is that it feels like I'm looking at something from Moonbase Alpha that also has a very cyber trucky aesthetic to it. So on my first glance,
Yeah.
basically nothing related to anything technical. Um, on the technical side though, it is a reasonable development in what we need. I mean, we see huge developments in launch programs, but building out this greater economy of need and scale of what we're gonna need when we go to the moon or back to the moon or Mars is this type of tech. I think it provides a exactly what it says on the can. It's a flexible platform. It's able to do a lot of the things that need to be done in terms of traversal and cargo transportation and providing a platform to be able to attach to that cargo. That type of stuff needs to be thought about early. We need to know the type of interfaces to develop, and I think Flex is a good step in the right direction. And if they're going to be the first to the table with some serious hardware, then you know that's going to be great for them because they're going to obviously be the first there. But also that's going to start to initiate those standards that we ultimately need. With NA's rover programs, when we work with other teams to implement and integrate their tech onto our platform, the first question that they need to ask us is what is their interface? What is our interface to their tech, and vice versa. So I think Flex is doing a great service in both beginning to investigate those standards for interfaces, but also just providing as a service its own platform that can do well. It looks like it's able to handle quite a lot of what it needs to do very well. So I think it's a step in the right direction. It looks well designed, obviously, um, and it's already gone through testing. It's also really cool that they're also following this rapid development approach, and it looks like they're going to be ready to go quite soon.
Yeah, yeah, this is really great. What about you, Will? What do you take out of this?
Well, I wonder if they created the acronym to match the name or the name to match the acronym, but that's just
Oh,
but
flexible, yeah.
Yeah,
but it looks really cool. Yeah, it looks quite a bit better than the Apollo rovers, which I guess isn't that that difficult with how far we've come in 60ish years now.
Yeah. One of
yeah,
my one of my favorite quotes on this is they can essentially drive it like they stole it.
Eh,
Uh, to describe the way that they've built this rover to weigh, how as much as it does, and to be able to handle kind of whatever you can throw at it. And at the risk of sounding like we're just throwing support at what just looks to be a cool device, we should note that the people working there have history with this type of tech. Matthews, for example, it says in the article, but he worked at JPL on Spirit and Opportunity. He went to SpaceX, so there is a good background in this type of tech there. It's not vaporware. Um, One of my main questions, I think, when I look at it though, is what are those material? What are those wheel materials made of? Because that's always been a famously hard issue with rovers in other environments, and that's something we continue to face.
yeah. That's a really good question. Something we'll have to investigate
Yeah, it looks like, well, they're not entirely solid. I wonder how that would go if you got like stuck in a sand drift or whatever on Mars, like happened to a few Mars rovers. I wonder if how would that would affect the way this would work.
Hmm. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get to see some more awesome footage from testing and see how they can deal with those issues as they run into them.
Yeah, yeah, of course. All right, so next one we have, so we're still in the moon exploration subject, but these articles that I'm linking to you guys now are not part or not planned to be part of the Artemis mission. So this one that I just linked is a program from the ESA that they kickstarted in 2019 to explore lunar caves. And the two winning Cisnova studies, which is what is called RoboCrane and Daedalus, were united and expanded into one complete mission plan. And the mission is to use a robotic crane to lower down a cave explorer into a lunar pit. The cave explorer would then explore and document the entrance to the cave before mapping the closest part of the cave at the bottom. The mission could launch on an Ariane 6 rocket in 2033 at the earliest. So it's still quite far in the future, but this is something that we've been looking at in Nexus Aurora for a while now. Means to explore lunar caves, and I remember our old discussion that we've talked about this a lot. What would be the best way of exploring lava tubes on the moon and other caves alike? I don't know if you guys had the time to check out the article, but do you think that there are methods is something that is that seems interesting, that seems viable to explore the lunar caves?
I think the moon's a much easier staging ground to get to than Mars, that's for
Yeah,
sure. But
yeah, of
I don't
course.
know. So does it lower a different vehicle into these caves that can then move around by itself, or is it just like a small probe that it lowers in and just does scans of the crater as it goes down?
So what I understand from this is that it's not a vehicle; it's a probe that it lowers, and it remains attached to the robotic crane. So it's stationary basically.
Mm.
Hmm.
That's my understanding. Maybe I'm wrong here.
I mean,
This doesn't.
does look to see what it is. Sorry, well,
Uh, looking at the looking at the so looking at the article, it seems that it does get lowered and then can move around, but I'm not entirely sure because it says map and explore, and it also seems like it has little legs in one of the photos.
Yeah,
I
I
think that you could feasibly attach anything to that probe. You know, if you
Mm-hmm.
can develop the tech and you have just like a black box of what the probe dimensions are going to be, that is that's customizable. If you can build like a little spider bot onto that, that's absolutely something that you could do. I mean, something I think that we saw being developed for the exploration of Martian lava tubes, right? Because those are going to be really important for initial staging grounds, storage of equipment, and setting up and being able to stay in there as human exploration while you set up the radiation protection needed for surface or subsurface settlements. And so there's been a bunch of ideas for exploring caverns like those lava tubes. One of the coolest ideas we saw in Nexus Aurora was basically spider bots. They would just be able to crawl over lots of different surfaces, which would allow them to be able to navigate through this different terrain in lava tubes. And so it seems to me that a natural extension of this would be that the ESA just publishes a general request for proposals for sub payloads that can be mounted to the end of that to provide additional exploration capability on top of just scanning, unless they're going to be selecting sites that won't have need for anything more than just a scanning probe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think this would be for testing the instruments, especially this would be a good cheap way of testing the instruments that will allow us to map the caves. Even though we can do it on Earth, we can't do it in lunar conditions, right? We can't make sure that these work in laboratory or everything like that, but it needs to be tested in real environment. And I think the crane is an interesting concept to do that very cheaply.
The tech on the probe seems like, I don't know if they mention it. I haven't been able to read through the entire article, but I'm pretty sure we use similar technology to map out like the ocean floor. So it's not unproven tech, but there could always be some unknown reaction between something on the lunar surface and something in the probe or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a hostile environment, so something could happen
Yeah,
that is
and
not known.
we do actually have on Earth in the US as well. NASA operates a testing chamber that is like a large area. It's a large testing chamber that is very customizable in terms of the temperature and vacuum. They can maintain a vacuum in it, and it is able to contain simulant. So we can pretty closely simulate the regular terrain of things like the Moon and Mars, but we can't necessarily go as far as to simulate entire cave systems. So there's only so far we can really go with our Earth testing before we have to do the real thing to test it. And so before we do that on Mars, it makes sense to do it on the Moon, and then also combine that data with an atmospheric planet that we can test on, like Earth as well. So I
Yeah.
think it's a really cool concept, and it's not like they won't have the time to develop on this kind of tech with the issues currently being experienced with the Mars mission.
Yeah, exactly. And there's another concept from the European Space Agency that I want to talk with you guys. So, following a competition, ESA has selected Thales Alenia Space in the UK to design and build the first experimental payload to extract oxygen from the surface of the moon. The compact payload will need to extract 50 to 100 grams of oxygen from lunar regolith within a 10 days period while running on the solar power available within a single fortnight long lunar day. So this is
Mm.
quite a challenge, and these guys will attempt to do it. And I think that being able to extract oxygen from lunar regolith is a crucial step to sustainable settlements on the moon. Do you guys
Mm-hmm.
think that's feasible?
The sediments or the extraction?
The extraction, the extraction.
Yeah, this is a good question for Sam, who works within NA within the farm program, because he's done a lot of research or has a lot of knowledge in this background of ISRU, in situ resource utilization. My comments on this could only go so far as to say I'm not 100% sure, but this is a great way to test it ultimately. If
Mm-hmm.
we can, obviously they're going to know what they're doing before they go. They're not going to turn up and just try to make some potato plants to make oxygen. So it's going to be great to get some real data based off of what our theoretical is, to get some practical data to see how this kind of how this process works in reality on not Earth conditions. So I think it's a promising mission, and again, just like I was talking about before, it builds out this economy of space that we need all these extra processes being developed and that knowledge being developed. We have the forefront of new space at the moment is all in launches, and that's great. But if we can get to Mars and we have nothing to create oxygen, to create fuel, to do plants and survive, that's not going to be very helpful. And so it's really interesting to see all of the different facets of this new space economy kind of. develop, and so testing is going to be a necessary milestone of that. So whether the extraction is going to be useful, I hope so. I think the important thing that we're going to get is being able to see what our practical versus theoretical is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
obviously that's always a huge challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One of the
Yeah.
one of the Nexus Aurora proposals I remember from a while ago was to use regolith to build the habitats. How would that work if you had already extracted the oxygen from the regolith? Would that compromise structural integrity in any way?
That depends on the way we planned to build the habitat. So there was a lot of
Mhm.
processing involved with a lot of the regolith. Whether we were just going to basically uh, do what's very similar to new processes here with like 3D printing concrete habs, and whether we can do that with post-processed material where we've already extracted useful materials out of it. Um, it really depends because we also we had a big project on the development and processing of regolith in order to get iron out of it in order to be able to do some steel manufacturing or manufacturing of metals. Uh, it really depends. You'd have to go back and look at our documentation, but in general, you can just take this regolith and adding additional components to it, turn it into a 3D printable habitat material. Whether it's oxygen is going to be such a necessary component to that process, it really depends on where you are on Mars and what kind of oxygen content you're going to be able to see.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. And so next topic that I want to discuss is about the Ingenuity spacecraft. I mean, it's kind of, the Ingenuity is kind of a spacecraft slash aircraft because it's anyway. So NASA has extended the flight operations of the Ingenuity Mars helicopter through September, and the aircraft
This
will.
sounds familiar.
Pardon me?
Usually NASA publishes like a pessimistic like window of how long it's going to operate, and
Yeah,
then it ends up operating for like 2 to 10 times as long as it was supposed to.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, they just build it out and then eventually they just go indefinite.
yeah, exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Until something bad happens, like dust completely covering the solar panel.
yeah.
Rip
So
a lot of the
hopefully,
Mars rovers that happened to.
hopefully the Ingenuity aircraft will be able to withstand these storms, right? Um, And the next goals of the aircraft will be to support the Perseverance rover upcoming science campaign to explore the ancient river delta of the Jezero crater by providing routing assistance and potential science targets. So it's still there's obviously a use to the Ingenuity aircraft, and it will be very interesting to see how and if they still use that system of having an aircraft with a rover combined for future missions, either on Mars or elsewhere.
Yeah. I mean, am I the only one who doesn't realize that Ingenuity's been up so long?
Yeah, it's been up for a
Yeah,
very long time.
it doesn't seem like it's been a long time, even since Perseverance went up. I
No,
guess time flies.
yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to remember when the launch was 20. It was February 2021, so it has been up, uh, yeah, for a year it seems. Or sorry, was it July 2020? Oh, I'm sorry, it was July 2020. Never mind, ignore me because that was part of the Mars 2020 mission, of course. So it's been up a while.
Yeah, so it's been up for
It
almost
is.
two years. Is it's what you're saying, right?
It looks like it. I mean, I don't want to give bad information because I don't remember the exact dates because I though we did watch it with NA, we watched the landing, which was incredible. But um, just as Vinfaz is also commenting on the stream though that hopefully Ingenuity can just last longer by dint of being able to have some self-cleaning capabilities during flight.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, there you go. It was launched July 2020. It did land February 2021. So
Okay.
it landed a month ago last year.
Yeah.
So it's been there a while.
So thanks a lot to Chat
That's
for enlightening us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so we'll go through a list of a couple missions now from NASA and ESA, and the next one that I present to you guys is the Psyche mission. And Psyche mission is obviously very interesting because it's going to an asteroid, and solar arrays were recently installed on the Psyche spacecraft. I never know how to say it. Is it Psyche, 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 Psyche? I don't know. Honestly, I'll just
I
go with
read that as I read that as psych or psyche.
Psyche. Psyche. You don't know
I think it's Psych.
Yeah.
Psyche. Okay, let's go with Psyche. Anyway, so the solar array spans over 75 square meters. It has 5 panels and it is the largest ever installed at JPL. The craft is planned to arrive at the asteroid Psyche in 2026, and the arrays will fold it back after testing and will be reunited with the spacecraft later this spring for launch. Please turn up volume for other speakers can't hear. Will do so, my friend. Will do so. Okay, let me know if that's better.
We'll test it out for you by commenting on this spacecraft with needs to be better named apparently.
Okay, Psyche. This this commenter says Psyche. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll uh I'll say
Right.
Psyche now because of you. All right. So what do you
Because
guys
it's
think?
going to the asteroid.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
So what do you guys think about this particular spacecraft? Are you excited for to launch? What do you hope it will discover?
I'm really interested in my main interest from these types of missions comes from that part of me, that like kid part of me who imagines the far future human generation that is just casually traveling among the stars. Epstein drives everywhere. Um, in that these asteroids, you just casually can land on one and pick up more platinum than the entirety of the Earth contains. So my main interest in this is just getting measures, getting more information about how these asteroids, work in terms of what they contain, how they're laid out, and how we can easily get to them. Because that kid side of me is thinking in the future we're just going to be able to go to asteroids and just pull them wherever we want, like KSP, and then just mine them and use them wherever we want, and we'll build giant star bases on them. But in the short term, maybe we can go to them and we can do ISRU, and we can maybe kind of get from asteroids in good spots, get some resources from them, bring them to outposts on Deimos or Phobos or Mars or the Moon, and get obviously some valuable scientific data as well. But so yeah, it's always an interesting mission when something daring is being accomplished, and this is also one that kind of reaches into that optimist in me that looks to the future of when this is just going to be a regular thing, and these are our first steps in that respect.
Okay. And what about you, Will? Easy to find them, hard to get them home. Yeah, I imagine you're talking about the asteroids. Yeah, that's a very good
Mm,
point.
yeah, I mean, who does? I
Asteroids
mean,
are really interesting, but in like Phil brought it up in the Nexus Aurora podcast, there's a lot of stuff against them. Like even like one of the simpler things, but that's also still a pretty big deal, is that the escape velocity is so low that you can just like throw a tennis ball and it'll probably leave orbit. Whereas on Earth you'd have to throw a tennis ball at 17,500 miles an hour. And
mm,
Yeah.
right.
Okay, so I just saw Vincent comment that there was still issues with the sound, that I was the lowest. I hope this fixes it. Hopefully. So let us know.
It's interesting that you say that about the tennis balls, though, because you got to remember that gravity is very hard to come by in terms of space objects. You have to get really, really heavy and dense before you can get some actual gravity. For example, Mars has two moons, Deimos and Phobos. They are famously small and misshapen. They look like potatoes. And as part of a recent project to develop an exploration excursion vehicle for the two Mars moons, which is coincidentally an abstract we've submitted for the upcoming IAC in Paris later this year. You can check out the abstract on our website. Cough.
Nice.
But in that you could take a long jump, like a running jump, and jump into not only into orbit around like Deimos, you could jump out. So you would escape velocity. You'd reach escape velocity of that moon and jump into Mars orbit. So very, very, the takeaway there is that the density or the mass of the asteroid can still be ridiculously large, way too much for us to do anything in terms of moving the asteroid itself over any short, negligible amount of time. And a lot more to do with we'll need to go there and just kind of, at the moment, piggyback it until we can go there where we want afterwards, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so Mike Shapiro just commented in the chat that using a gravity tractor, we can get one back in 10 to 15 years, depending on how far out. What do you think about that, Cameron? Do you think that's possible?
Well, so gravity tractors are something I'm not hugely familiar with. I know they're generally theoretical spacecraft, and they are exactly that. They're theoretical. It's hard to imagine. Yeah, the theory is there. Yeah, I think that is definitely something that could happen, but it is very much hypothetical. But I haven't seen the real paperwork going down for how exactly we're going to do that. It's not saying we're going to make tractor beams, but it's not saying that we're going to have to very, very slowly bring something back into orbit. Just like he's saying, 10 to 15 years is a negligible amount of time to being able to bring back an asteroid, but it's still quite a long time in terms of being able to get the data we want and then bring back other asteroids. In the SpaceX approach to that, you would be bringing back 15 and hoping that by the first one gets here, you can learn enough that the second one gets here and we have more tech to be able to explore it.
Yeah, at this point, I guess it really becomes a cost-benefit analysis, right? Of which means of getting the resources in orbit of either Earth or the Moon or Mars. It becomes either the fastest or the most cost-effective. Yeah. Okay. So let's jump onto the next subject, which is a news about Europa Clipper. So NASA has begun the assembly of Europa Clipper. Before the end of the year, most of the flight hardware is expected to be complete. And once all the components have been integrated, Europa Clipper will move to JPL's thermal vacuum chamber for testing that simulates a deep space environment. And the spacecraft is expected to launch in October 2024. So this is obviously the Europa Clipper. Now we've touched with the Psyche spacecraft. We've touched the industrial side of space exploration, if I may. And with the Europa Clipper, we go more into the very concrete science of trying to find life elsewhere. And obviously, Clipper is meant to explore the Jupiter's moon, Europa. But yeah, I'm excited to see what's this gonna do in October 2024. What about you guys?
Well, I'm a little biased since Europa is the place I want to see us go to most, just because of how cool it would be to find like that gigantic water ice, like that gigantic ocean underneath the water ice shell. But if I remember correctly, the Europa Clipper is going to be a it's going to be a flyby, right? Uh,
That's a good question. I think it will be yes, a flyby. I can't
mhm.
verify it for now because my screens are
and
overloaded, honestly.
and then I think the next Europa mission is gonna be actually have a drill to make sure there's a water ocean.
Yeah, hopefully that would be very interesting to do.
Well, assuming they get funding for it.
Yeah.
Right. Just by the way, so the Europa Clipper will be doing several flybys around Jupiter.
Okay,
So
thanks.
during that, it'll be looking at Europa. So it's clipping
Yeah.
the European sphere of influence. Yeah, and I agree with Will. I think a lot of people are biased because we've heard so much about Jupiter's moons and the possibility of what's there. Just because there's so much diversity in terms of the moons, in terms of its ice, in terms of what it contains, and so this is going to be an exciting mission because if we can develop ice drills and the tech to be able to land and drill into these moons, we can maybe get some really good data on the formation of water and ice within the solar system, the potential for microbial life, or if potentially Europe is even able to sustain life, whether or not it exists there, that would be huge. Imagine if we were looking for life all this time in the solar system or outside the solar system, and it just happens to have been there, even in this most simple forms, right there within our own solar system.
Yeah, I think that would be I recall a conversation that I had with Phil, that hosts the Nexus Aurora podcast, and I invite you all to listen to it. It's very interesting, and it's available on Spotify. But I recall a discussion with him that if we were to find life in our solar system, it would actually be a little bit scary, right? Because we would have to reconsider how life is frequent on celestial bodies, and which means if there's life in two bodies in our solar system, why haven't we found any life elsewhere, right? So yeah, that would be a very interesting question once we get there, obviously.
What's your take on that in general? Like, do you go in for the Fermi paradox and the dark woods explanation of why we don't see other life, or do you think it is more to do with the fact that space is just a big place and we seem to be in a less inhabited corner of the galaxy?
Oh man, that's a big question. Yeah, obviously, since you asked me, I have to take position on that. But yeah, I think that we are maybe one of the first intelligent life, or at least one of the first intelligent life to make it to space capabilities. So independently of how frequent life can make it on other planets or can prosper on other planets, there is obviously the question of the great filters, right? The great filters that we have to
Mm.
overcome to survive, that every life on any bodies have to overcome to survive. And we might be one of the earliest to make it this far, at least in our galaxy, which is why
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
we don't see any signs yet.
Do
Although
you
the
think?
great filter is just a hypothesis, it's not proven, but
Well, nothing
well,
at this point is.
Yeah,
yeah.
So you think
Although,
we're the ones sending UFOs to other planets in the future?
exactly, exactly. I think we're the ones sending UFOs. Yeah, that's my
Got it.
belief.
All right. Well, it's there now. It's in stone. It's a public statement. So, you know,
I'm
if we
not
find
shy
any
about it.
life on Europa, we'll be coming back to this conversation.
Yeah,
If
that's
there's
fine
if
with
there's
me.
underwater civilizations, you know, we'll find out.
Yeah. Obviously, this is a very human-centric perspective, right? Like,
yeah,
oh, we are in the middle of the universe. This is our place, not the little green guys. But yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Um,
maybe we can come back to life on other planets as a bonus topic at the end.
yeah, we'll see. Obviously, it becomes a very deep subject to discuss.
Hmm.
I quote Sagan, if we are the only ones, seems like an awful waste of space, says Mark Shapiro. This is obviously every Sagan's quote are um, very marvelous and leads to a great deal of reflection. All right, let's hop to the next subject, which is news from James Webb Space Telescope. Oop, I was about to link the same article. Still getting used to it, guys. Uh, should come up soon. So yeah, news about the James Webb Space Telescope. So recently, the Webb team completed the stage of alignment known as fine phasing, and the observatory was able to successfully gather light from a distant star. The image can be found on NASA's official website, and over the next 6 weeks, the team will proceed through the remaining alignment steps before final science instrument preparations. So this is a very exciting times. The James Webb Space Telescope. Cameron briefly touched it at the beginning of our live stream. So how are you feeling knowing that we finally got an image from this observatory and that more are to come now?
Oh my goodness. Not as good as the people who built this satellite. I can
Ah,
only imagine like the fewer uh, possibilities or sources of release of tension that can have come from getting this far this successfully with JWST. It has been a long road and it has been a very complex, deployment process and alignment process, and they must just now hopefully being able to take a breath because we're getting through these stages and already we can see the physical evidence of what it's sending back. You can see the progress as it aligns. So it's really great to see from just a citizen's perspective, but it just must be amazing from their perspective as well. And I really can't wait until we start getting some even cooler photos as we go through the final alignment processes. And we're
it's
moving
been a
quite
li-
fast through it.
it's been a long time coming.
Right.
Just like with SLS, I remember like going down the rabbit hole like a few years ago, seeing all the cool renders, and we're finally here.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah. I
mean,
mean,
It's been delayed over and over again, just like most important stuff. Don't want it exploding before it even gets to orbit.
oh
yeah.
yeah, they like I remember seeing in the news that they dropped the satellite like 5 days before it was supposed to launch, and they had to postpone for 2 days or something like that. And I mean, evidently nothing was, no harm was done. So thankful. We're very thankful for that. But
Mm.
yeah, this was a period of high stress last December, and it was for us. So I can't even imagine, like you said, Cameron, what it was for the engineers and scientists
Hmm.
that worked on that.
Yeah. It's I
I'm
mean it's
happy the team was. I'm happy the team was nice enough to unfurl the mirrors like right before it passed out of the camera, which we would never see it again.
yeah. Or at least not for a while. I mean, the current date for development, and I'll reference the XKCD again here for delays. We have members within Nexus Aurora who were born after the start of the JWST project,
Yeah.
and we more than that, we have members who were born after the initial planned launch date. Back in 2006, 2007. That it was meant to have launched by. We have members who have been born after that, and then they've now just seen the launch. It has been a long time coming, and so for the people who have been following it all the way along, it's been a long road and not the most optimistic road. Obviously
Hmm.
when things get pushed out this month, and the people who have kind of joined us in life, I suppose, halfway through, same thing. It's literally been their entire lives coming, and it's nice to see it finally come about. It's vindicating. It's gives us some optimism for what we're gonna be able to finally see, and just if you've ever seen those graphs comparing what we're going to be able to get from this versus what we've already got from Hubble, which is itself amazing, it is truly mind-boggling how powerful this telescope is going to be.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, it's going to be awesome, and I'm definitely going to have some new background wallpapers coming
Oh
soon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I
The
just want.
only minor sad thing about it is that it can't capture invisible light, but I'm sure we already have stuff that converts infrared directly to visible wavelengths, so it won't be that bad.
And they're all already planning even more lofty goals of these satellites. So, but yeah, it might be a very expensive wallpaper provider, but
Yeah.
I'm happy to support it. My tax money can go to that anytime. That's another thing. We have people who were born and started paying taxes towards JWST from the time they were born after the JWST was started production.
Yeah, thinking about it that way, it's amazing. And I just wanted to go back to Vincent's comment about the ability of the JWST to observe a planet's atmosphere. And this will obviously be incredible data that will complement what TESS is doing currently of identifying exoplanets. So this is like all of our observatories coming together, and it's really great thinking about it that way, I think.
Yeah, it's a new
Okay.
stage of collaboration.
Yeah. All right. So I have some bad news, guys. I just looked at the SpaceX launch time,
It
and
gets scrubbed.
I don't think it's scrub. It's not scrub, but it's delayed of another hour. So it's in 2 hours from now, not in an hour from now, like it was planned at the beginning of the stream. So it
Did they
will
say
be.
the reason why?
No, I just went to their website to check out the live stream, and it says live in 2 hours.
So, chat, what do you guys think? Should we wait for another? Should we wait for an hour than we were supposed to?
Because I'll be honest, I don't have content for 2 hours. I have content for one more hour, but not
We
for
could
two.
get we could get someone who knows what they're talking about on.
What are you saying?
Whoa,
Well,
Nobody
what
here.
are you saying here?
sorry.
Yeah,
Get an actual industry professional because we have quite a few of those, and just have a impromptu interview.
we're all industry professional here. We're all working with Nexus Aurora as industry professional.
hmm Well, what
Yes.
industry professional are you looking for?
Yeah,
I mean, we're also industry professionals, and not just with NA, but with other industries as well.
yeah,
Yep.
that's right. I'll concede that my realm of expertise is nowhere near anything that is STEM related.
Yeah. If we can find someone who's closer to space, then who has a profession closer to space, that would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
But
of course.
it's probably
Well,
not a
I
viable
ca-
option
I
to
It's
do
not.
right
current
now.
I mean I'm a propulsion engineer with Mars Aerospace,
Oh,
developing satellites.
lucky us. We already have one here.
I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for when it comes to the topics we're discussing, but
I mean,
it's somewhat close to the industry, I suppose, depending on what part of the industry.
I probably should have known that.
It's fine. Yeah, but okay. Anyway, let's keep going on with our topic, and I just want to say I don't think we'll keep going until the launch,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah, we'll have to cut it short before the launch, but let's keep going for now. All right?
Sounds good.
Yeah, totally got tons of content left.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so next one I have is some news about Blue Origin. And so Mod of Space Systems and Blue Origin were awarded a contract from the Defense Innovation Unit's Modularity for Space Systems program. Man, these things get hard to pronounce sometimes. Modulink is a system. So Modulink is the system that Blue Origin and Motive Space Systems have been working on. So Modulink is a system involving two robotic arms, sensors, and modular interfaces that allows their users to turn their spacecraft into customized robotic spacecrafts. The project is planned as a 3-year development cycle concluding in a flight demonstration. So this is something that seems complex, if I may say. Could you could you enlighten us a bit, Cameron, about the modeling? Do you know anything about it, or have you heard about it?
So, yeah, in this area, the U.S. government really comes into play because they have been making big pushes recently for the introduction of what's called their OSAM objectives, which is on-orbit servicing, assembly, and maintenance of spacecraft. And so when you get something like the modularity of this system, of Motive Space System and the subcontract Blue Origin, that's exactly what this is going for with Modulink, being able to provide on-orbit servicing and maintenance directly to its own craft. So this isn't necessarily a craft that visits other craft, but it enables us to basically do in situ repairs and do whatever we need to do without necessarily going up there. Imagine what a game changer it might have been if we had had a spare parts bucket and a Canadarm attached to the Hubble. We wouldn't have had to go up to do fixes or any of this maintenance as much because we could have done it on orbit there. And so it makes sense that the government's pushing for this, and it makes sense that we're already seeing companies develop this type of stuff. It's very useful to be able to have on orbit, and it's going to be necessary, especially for orbital debris removal, which is also coming up as a big thing. I don't want to get into the whole mire that is Blue Origin and the work so far and what they're delivering on, because they do have several contracts on, and they have been able to deliver on some of them. At this point I take
some.
Yeah, well, at this point I take a much more reserved approach to most new space companies, in that I like to see them put the money where the mouth is before I make actual comment on what I believe the company is able to do, which I think is a pretty safe bet with a new space economy like this. But yeah, so it hits all the right check boxes for what we want going into the future of what is the next generation of spacecraft and satellite systems look like.
That is really interesting. So it really leads us to how there will be more activities in space, how prolonged activities will be possible in space, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to provide that maintenance at the time on the spacecraft is going to be invaluable. Again, think about Hubble.
Yeah.
Just in all ways, having set of manipulators, arms on a craft, able to do different things is going to be very useful. I mean, especially if you can develop it into a lightweight and modular system that you can slap onto any other spacecraft bus that is going into space. Why not? That's definitely going to be an asset to have if you can have the option.
Okay. And what do you think about it, Will?
I can fitting something so we can easily repair.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Well, with the recent Hubble scare that happened, where it went into emergency mode, I think it's a really good idea. So we can easily check and fix things if they go wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can think about this as you basically turn your satellites, which were previously just boxes with solar panels, into basically like little futuristic quadcopter drones in space. It's drones in space, right? They're able to kind of move about the plant and pick things up and manipulate objects and do all these cool stuff. now we're going to the next generation of spacecraft. This is what you want to have. You want to have lots of little Evas, like from Wally, being able to be in space and do their own little missions. And so you need to increase what they're able to do. And so this is a great step towards that.
So there was no information about this in the article, but I believe. Do you think these will be manually piloted, or will they use like a program or artificial intelligence to pilot these?
I think it depends on the mission and what they need.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I have no clue, but you can feasibly imagine that you might slap it onto, any spacecraft, have it run health checks or have it run routine maintenance while being monitored by humans, and then it may have special control circumstances where you'll want to do that as a person with direct control. So
Yeah. Okay.
It
Okay.
also depends on how far away it is, since you can't really do manual control if the time light takes to reach it is like even more than like a few seconds.
yeah, it really depends on if you're sending packets or, well, yeah, why not both? To quote Zoidberg.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. And on to our next subject is another. Okay, I'll refrain from doing that comment. Is Boeing Starliners. So, yeah, I think you knew where I was going, Cameron. But anyway, so
Is
U.S.
a
Space,
Boeing and refraining from comment.
yeah. So U.S. Space Force has postponed a multi-spacecraft mission meant to fly on a ULA Atlas V rocket in April. So this is another step back for the Boeing launcher that rolled to the launch pad last August, but was scrubbed when tests revealed stuck valves in the Starliner propulsion system. And they tried to fix it, and apparently it's not fixed yet. So Boeing released a very short statement on social media, and it is there is no from what I know there is no launch date that is planned. So this looks very grim for Starliner if I'm only looking at the social media post, which is not a lot, I'll admit.
I mean, is it me or does it just seem like they're kind of walking back the updates on Starliner? Like we're fine. I feel like we're being told less and less
Yeah,
because it's continuing to have these issues, and I don't know if that's really them kind of phasing it out because Boeing's going to say it's not something they want to pursue anymore, or is it going to be something where they just are going to keep it in the background until they actually have the viable product ready to go and tested?
yeah. So
It's
let's
it's
just
not.
go back
Yeah.
on Starliner. What is exactly Starliner? Could you describe to us the spacecraft?
So, Boeing Starliner spacecraft is part of the Commercial Crew Program from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. It's meant to be Boeing's entry into crew capsules and commercial crew. So they are currently. I don't know. Do you remember who the people within the that sphere of developing the human capsules are?
I'm pretty sure it's the Orion capsule, no? Isn't it?
Yes, that was it. The Orion, and then you have Starliner, which is the Boeing
Yeah.
CST 100 is the actual name of it, but it's meant to be that next generation again with new space, but that next generation of uh, crew transport. So whether that's going to be serving commercial crew missions to the ISS, other destinations, or it can form parts of larger and longer missions. That's what Boeing's meant to be doing, and so they're up against people who are developing and already have developed other crew capsules or transport capsules, which we've seen from SpaceX and we've seen from with the Orion. So it's not looking good for Boeing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not. This isn't new tech. It's the next generation of tech, but this isn't anything that should be so super hard that it's impossible development. to develop, and I don't think the engineers and development of Starliner has necessarily been done poorly, so much as it's had some really bad luck, and that doesn't look good when you compare it to the management decisions that we've seen from greater Boeing, issues both within and without outside the aerospace and space markets.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, exactly. Um, I think, however, even though with all that being said, Starliner is maybe one of the spacecraft in its own genre that is the closest to going in orbit, right? Um, there is the I think Virgin's Galactic spacecraft. I don't really remember its name, but that made it to orbit, but it doesn't launch from the ground.
Dream Chaser?
Yeah, was it Dream Chaser? Oh yeah, there's Dream Chaser as well. You're right. I think Dream Chaser is another spacecraft. Totally.
Yes, that's by Sierra Nevada, not
Yeah.
Virgin Galactic.
Yeah, but even with all what I meant of saying is even with all the setbacks, there is still no one that was able to send a launch vehicle apart from Virgin Galactic. But let's just set that one apart because it's not they're not
Virgin
launching from the
Galactic.
ground. Yeah?
I don't think they even got to orbit. I think they only got suborbital, or am I? I don't know.
Yeah, they only
Correctly.
got suborbital for a period of like a couple minutes if I recall correctly.
I don't think it's supposed to be
Yeah, this is
entirely. I think it's more space tourism, but
yeah. Yeah, it's not
I,
meant for commercial freighting or
I'm
anything like that.
I'm pretty sure Boeing's gotten suborbital.
Dream Chaser from Sierra Nevada did not make it to orbit, but did some high altitude tests, I think. Yeah, that
Yeah,
would make sense.
most of the space plane style vehicles haven't done orbit,
Yeah,
with the notable
they
exception of shuttle.
yeah, it seems to be very complex to achieve with that type of vehicle. But obviously, it seems to be very promising as a type of vehicle for crewed space flights.
Yeah, I believe also. I believe recently there was not a big controversy. There was just some sort of issues that came up that Boeing had kind of sneakily changed their site about the facts of the vehicle, and some of the claims they made about being like the first of its kind of these reusable spacecraft, when it's been pointed out that kind of already been done, and it's already not necessarily going to be the only thing on the market if it does or when it does succeed. So it's been mired with a lot of like bad luck, and the typical, I think, bureaucracy that we've all come to expect from places like Boeing, that just happen when you're in part of a big company. Um, yeah, there's not too much more to say on it.
I guess SpaceX gets around it by just saying, like, well, I guess Elon just goes, "Why are we going so slow? Work harder, go."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if
I
he really says it that way,
I
but
don't know.
this is what he means,
Yeah,
I'm sure of it.
He sends it
I
in
don't
an
know.
email.
I don't know how the work culture is over there, but I remember hearing that Tesla's work culture in the early days was not very good, and it was a lot of micromanaging by Elon. But
Right. So
hey, it works.
they
It
have the
works.
Dragon capsule out of that now. So
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
there you go.
yeah. Let's
It
let's
works.
only go with what we know. I mean, these are, from as far as I know, these are rumors, so I won't say anything about it. But let's just go back to Boeing, because if we can talk about a company that has um, questionable work culture, I think we can talk about Boeing.
And yeah, and everything else in between. I
Yeah,
will, I will, I will make my official statement that I reserve judgment until I see the working vehicle.
very well.
just
Yeah,
just like just like Blue Origin, it's hard to comment on Boeing anymore.
Yeah, of
You know,
course. I think the I think results will speak the most, just like SpaceX does.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so on to our next subject is an Indian launch vehicle. So we don't talk very often about India, so I thought it would be very fitting to include an article about India for this event. And the reason is India is often very discreet in their space activities, or they just don't have a lot of budget dedicated to their space activities. So ground testing of the newly developed solid booster stage, which is called SS1, for the new small satellite launch vehicle of the Indian Space Research Organization, was successfully carried out in March 14, 2022. So this was like 4 days ago. And the SS1 motor is a three-segmented solid propulsion stage. The remaining stages of the small satellite launch vehicle have successfully undergone testing as well and are ready for integration. So they are very close of doing the final testings of integrating it all together and doing the launch at some point. And this will give great capabilities to India to launch small satellites into orbit.
This is really cool to see.
Yeah, this
They've
is
done, they've been making a lot of moves recently. I mean, they've also had the I don't know if I can pronounce this Gaganyaan,
yeah,
um,
I know what you're
their own
talking
crewed
about.
orbital, yeah, their own crewed orbital vehicle. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll be successful before Starliner, but they've been making a lot of moves recently, and it's really good to see um, more nations developing even more advanced lines. I mean, it has never been a small player. Well, it hasn't been a small player for a long time, at least in the space market, and it's making a lot of moves. And one thing that we noticed, especially when we were speaking with the engineers and some of the administration at the ISRO, is they get things done really cost efficiently. I believe. Unless I'm being very confused at the moment, they can really cheaply build and launch these craft.
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean here, I think the projected cost per launch for the small satellite launch vehicle is $4 million.
Wow. Can
So,
imagine? I know it's not even the same range of activities, right? SLS is going to the moon for a very special mission, and they want to go to Mars after that. But can you imagine? It's like 1,000 times less than SLS for each launch.
yeah, for 600 kilograms to low Earth orbit,
Yeah,
it's
this is
it's
crazy.
very promising. You know, what I wonder is will this the SSLV take any part of will it kind of bootstrap this new nanoracks for India, or you know what I mean? Like, will it bootstrap a much bigger involvement of small satellite launching directly from India? You know, they don't have to export to do ride shares from US or Russian based launches or European based launches, and they don't have to do it on their larger vehicles because they can have a dedicated more satellite launch vehicle that they can develop out their own systems. You know, I'm not the most familiar with what they currently have for rideshare ability on their larger vehicles. I do know a lot of people end up exporting it for the cost over to rideshares for things like the Falcon 9. So I wonder how this is going to kind of change the playing field for South and Southeast Asia in terms of those rideshare capabilities and opening space access for a lot lower cost to especially educational institutions there.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Obviously, it will open a new market for India, and it will allow them to have their own launch vehicle for small satellites, but it will also offer other nations of Southeast Asia the possibility of using that launch vehicle to launch satellites into orbit. And one that I have in mind, but that, I mean, they don't have the habit of cooperating on these kind of things, but it's China, right? China has
Hmm.
been mostly renowned for their large vehicles, right, with the Long March rocket that they've been using to build their space station in orbit right now. But as far as I know, they haven't done a lot of small satellite launch. Am I correct by saying this?
I didn't catch just that last part.
Oh, okay. I just meant that as far as I know, China has great capabilities
Hmm.
for large launches with their Long March rocket,
Yeah.
but they don't have a lot of. They didn't use a lot of small launch vehicles, so that there could have a kind of collaboration between India and China, one doing the small launch, the other doing the large launch.
Yeah.
But
I mean, there would be its own political issues and developments that would need to be required between those two programs. Uh, but it's absolutely something that you know could potentially lead to some greater cooperation in this area. It's something that historically has, in terms of just general political and economic situations, been not the most untense, if that's a good way to say it. But you're right. The China has a really great success with their large vehicles. They do have a smaller line of small launch vehicles or quick reaction orbital launch vehicles. They're larger scale, or they deliver larger payloads. There's 600 kilograms for the India's SSLV versus 1500 for the I don't want to mispronounce this again, Quaizhou, which is the quick reaction orbital launch vehicle that China has. But yeah, I mean, being able to get smaller, especially if it's cheaper, is always a good thing. So maybe it will. Maybe we will. I'm optimistic, but I will make my official statement that I will wait to see what comes of it before I comment further.
yeah, obviously.
But yeah.
All right, so this is about where I would end our round of discussion and where we would start discussion about the incoming Starlink launch. But unfortunately, there is like I said earlier, the Starlink launch was delayed to of an hour, something like that.
Should we begin our bonus topic?
Yeah. What is our bonus topic?
I thought, well, I mentioned we went on a little bit of a detour to talking about life on other planets and had to get back on track, but I assume all of us probably want to say some more about it.
Yeah, yeah, obviously. I think that that is a very interesting topic, and we could go
Mm-hmm.
on that topic for a very long time. Um, but yeah, sure. Let's keep the discussion going about life elsewhere. I mean, I gave my position, right? I gave away my position. Did you give yours, Cameron?
I did not, because I'm not 100% sure. Because, well, there's a reason these theories exist, right? Everyone has their own crackpot theory as to what's going on, and I feel like it's Occam's razor that it's kind of a mix of everything. It
Yeah,
more than likely is just like that. When I grew up, I don't know about you guys, but I always heard about UFOs in the sky and why haven't aliens visited us yet? And I always thought, well, why aren't we the aliens that another planet, a civilization, is waiting for us to visit them? It's like two people waiting for the other person to text first. And to bring it to a more colloquial metaphor, it's just we're going to be the UFOs in their sky one day, or why hasn't a more advanced species come to beam us up? It really, I think, is just a mix of everything. I think we're kind of just a more also unoccupied corner of space, or maybe it's something different. Maybe we are, the prime directive. We're not advanced enough to be able to get to that for other advanced civilizations to talk to us. I hope not, because I would really like to talk to some advanced alien civilizations and get huge leaps and bounds in space tech, but I don't know if that's very likely.
Not even not even to get leaps and bounds in space tech, just to know we're not alone would be awesome.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it is. I don't think it's like the pessimistic. We haven't met space because they're all trying to stay hidden because they don't want to be they know that if they find another one, they're going to have to destroy it in order to ensure their own survival. Just because I know we haven't come to that juncture as human race yet to have to make that decision, but it seems like most people are already on the side of we want to find other civilizations and other alien species, but we don't want to destroy them. So I don't think things like the Dark Forest explanation is has as much credit as maybe people give it. Are you guys familiar with the Dark Forest explanation?
I think I saw a video about it, but I think I watched it a while ago. So,
can you explain it for the audience?
Yeah. So the basic premise is that humanity is a hunter in a dark forest, moving stealthily through the underbrush, trying to stay hidden and trying to stay quiet. It is a hunter in this dark forest, and every other civilization is another hunter in that forest. And all of these silent hunters try to creep about, trying to not be seen and just not, engage. Because as soon as they see another civilization, or as soon as they feel that they will be seen, they'll immediately be destroyed by that civilization, the finding civilization, as a means of self-preservation. It's a survival tactic that we just think that we won't be able to coexist with another civilization, so we'll have to destroy them before they destroy us. And so, as a result, everyone tries to not be found because they don't want this to happen. And that's the Dark Forest, roughly the Dark Forest explanation of why we haven't found anyone, is because no one wants to be found. And I don't know if that rings true, because it just doesn't seem to be the prevailing strategy for dealing with extraterrestrials on Earth. And so statistically, it just is unlikely that that is the case for every other civilization. I mean, if we wanted to not be found, we probably shouldn't have sent out a nice big gold disc into space.
Exactly.
Talking all about how cool we are.
And exactly where to find us.
Yeah, our exact coordinates. Yes.
How we speak and our math, and or maybe the movie Contact. So it's, I don't know. It seems statistically unlikely that it is the case that everyone else doesn't want to be found and we're just the odd ones out, and also happen to be the ones that don't have spacefaring capability to the extent that we're flying around with our Federation of Planets USS Enterprise. Yeah, it depends. I think everyone has a different theory, and I think just statistically it's likely that aliens exist out there and we just haven't found them yet, because space is quite a large place. I think most people have noticed.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. So I found the video. It was by Kurzgesagt. I can barely pronounce that, but it's a
great channel there.
Really nice channel. I would like to watch it on stream, but I doubt we could without getting copyright claims, so let's not do that.
Yeah, I don't think we can watch it. But what about you, Will? What do you think? What is your take on life elsewhere in the galaxy?
I think it exists, but I think there's been... Well, our galaxy is a lot bigger than people think. Well, probably not, but it's a very big galaxy. Well, it's not even one of the biggest. What was 100 billion light years or something ridiculous. But okay, 1 second. I'm gonna make sure that was not something I just randomly spit out. Okay, roughly 200,000 light years, but that's a lot.
Yeah.
So if the only other intelligent species is on the other side of the galaxy, and we didn't evolve technology until like the technology to transmit radio waves until 200 years ago, roughly. Well, less than 200 years ago, 120 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I
That-
mean, it's
and and let's say they're advancing at a similar pace as us. Even if they got it like 1,000 years ago, it would still take them 200,000 years. Their radio waves 200,000 years to reach us.
yeah, and I think you bring a very good point that life elsewhere doesn't have to be thought of as in other on other planets or in other spaces, right? It has to be thought of it like in time. Is there another intelligent life somewhere that is alive at the same time as us and that which we can communicate with,
Hmm.
that has the same or equivalent capabilities of communication as we have to be able to communicate? And this is obviously something very that we know nothing about, right? Because there's no sign of life anywhere apart from Earth.
Hmm. Except the few times that we've been on Mars, and oh wait, that looks like life. And then like a few months later, people are like, oh wait, that's like some random crystal formation.
Yeah, yeah, that happens very often. I remember
Hmm.
just a couple weeks ago, there was a picture of
That flower.
a picture of a flower. Okay, I was going with the Chang'e rover, which is on the moon. It's just Chinese rover on the
Yeah,
moon, on the dark side of the moon,
yeah,
and
working with different stuff.
it took a picture of something that looked like a cube, something like very squared
Oh
off,
yeah,
and
that one.
people were wondering, well, how can it has sharp edges like this, and how can it be like a cube? This is surely either man-made or an ET made it or something alike. I don't know. Maybe it's an artifact from the moon. Yeah, but it was a rock. Yeah. Um, so
Wasn't
things
it
like that.
supposed to take like 10 months to get over there?
But we are just we're so desperate to find it, even within our own little solar system, that we're gonna very much always look towards hoping that things are life wherever they are. And if we find so
Hmm.
much, complexity and diversity within our own little system here, it's statistically likely that there's other civilizations in the exact same stage.
Yeah.
There's once again relevant XKCD quote. It is something like,
Always
you know
relevant XKCD.
yeah, there's always relevant XKDC, but it's something about the sensible choice about exploring other planets. Like there are hundreds of one planet civilization graves in the solar system, in the galaxy, that made the sensible economic choice not to develop spacefaring capability, or to go into space. And each one of those civilization graves is studied and remembered by the civilizations that made the irresponsible choice. So, the part of that explanation also says there's probably a lot of civilizations that have come and gone because they decided not to go into space, and they eventually ran out of resources on their planet, or they do still exist there, or they're not at that point yet where they need to worry about it. So it's statistically likely that there's going to be aliens out there. The difficulty is at what point technologically are they, and where are we relative to that in terms of how can they get to us?
Yeah.
And the whole space travel thing is kind of chicken and egg, because it's kind of like, you can say, if time travel exists in the future, then they can come back to this moment right now and tell me that that it's going to exist in the future. And then obviously no one appears next to me, so I can then, we can then surmise that time travel never gets invented. And it's
Yeah,
kind of
but
like that with like warp travel, for example. You
Didn't
say, well, if warp travel is ever gets invented, it would have been invented by another civilization by now. It's been long enough, so because we've never been visited, we can imagine that it's not invented. And there's several scenarios that invalidate that, because they may not have just visited us. It may not be possible to visit us all the way here, or someone has to be the first civilization to invent that, and maybe that hasn't happened yet.
yeah, which is what I
didn't
think.
Stephen Hawking do an experiment where he like left invitations buried in the ground to a party, and then he just sat outside, and then he just sat waiting for time travelers to show up.
I think he did. I think he sent He basically invited time travelers to a party or something. Yeah, and I think he wanted them to bring like Einstein along as well for the ride.
Oh man, this guy was amazing.
Yeah.
Yep. Rest in peace.
Yep.
So
All
yeah,
right.
there's a lot of explanations, but
Yeah.
most likely there is life out there, and
Yes.
the Men in Black will prevent us from ever knowing about it. That's my hot take. That's my theory. We already know, and we
That,
work with aliens, and
that
they come to Earth all the time. But
that's not even a hot. That's not even a hot take. That's your average Area 51 conspiracy theory.
they're already here. And the only place you'll really see them is at the Men in Black ride in Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah.
We are we're not Space Race is not state of the game is not sponsored by Universal, but if you'd like to sponsor us and you know Universal,
Yeah, please
please
do
reach out.
so. Call us. Thanks.
We would like to be
So
in the
we can
new Men
make.
in Black movie.
Yeah, we got to make Men in Black jokes without getting copyright claimed.
Yeah, and I mean, I heard the hypothesis that apparently Earth is something like a park, right? Or a zoo that a touristic attraction that
Oh
aliens
yeah,
come
this.
by to observe us. Like,
Oh look at these humans. They've
yeah,
advanced so much since the last time we were
look at the
here.
little apes shooting themselves and killing each other. Amazing. And they're
And
laughing about it.
sending and sending these things they call rockets barely any distance from their planets.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that obviously any hypothesis is viable at this point because there is no evidence whatsoever. But I'd be very surprised if that was the case. Anyway,
Hmm.
before we go even further from our original subject of discussions, I think it's a good time to end the stream. And thank you guys very much for joining me. Um,
Are we gonna talk about the site?
the site. Oh yeah, right. Thanks for reminding me, Will. So, okay, how do you want to do that? Um, so our project that we have been working on in Nexus Aurora, which is called the Space Race Project, we
Give
have
me like
developed.
give
Yep.
me like 2 minutes. I just gotta put the right image put the right just change an image out real quick.
Okay. Well, you have the time while I do my speech anyway.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, Will and I have been working on doing uh, on defining performance metrics for space launchers. And that is for the purpose of doing a leaderboard every year of the performance of space launchers in the space industry. That's a lot of space. But anyway, this leaderboard will be available very shortly. And it's the 2021 leaderboard. It's our first version, and we plan to do one for 2022 as well.
Mhm.
But it,
Once we get enough launches.
yes, at least when we get enough launches. But work is still being done on the 2021 leaderboard, and this is because we are still working in defining the metrics, and we hope to collaborate with industry experts to help us have more precise algorithm for the leaderboard. So the way it
Main
works,
problem at
yes,
Our main problem at the moment is we have some inaccurate data,
yeah,
but
exactly. We
It's
have
a
inaccurate
refining
data.
process.
Yep, sorry, Cameron.
You're refining the process.
Yes, exactly.
mhm.
We're refining the process at the moment. Like I said, this is our first leaderboard. We're still working on it. And if you want to help us work on it, you can join us in the Nexus or okay. Apparently, when I changed scenes to the socials, it got the sounds. Um,
Oh,
yeah, this is a problem. Anyway, you can join us in our Nexus or Discord server for future live stream. We will figure out every sound issues we have, and we will get better. Obviously, this was our first live stream, and I'm very sorry for all the technical difficulties that we had at the beginning and towards the end. It didn't go as planned because the Starlink launch was postponed, but it's fine. We still have content, and
that's always the risk when you're doing space launches, when you're covering space launches.
yeah, exactly. It's always a risk, and we like to take those. So just to get back to our leaderboard, please get go check it out at nexusaurora.org. And
Spacerace.nexusaurora.org.
yeah, thank you, Will. Spacerace.nexusaurora.org. I think I can even do it like this. Wait,
Do a preview.
can I do it like this? Mm,
You could just change your browser tab to the site.
yeah, that's what I was about to do. Okay, so there we have it. And when you click on 2021, you can see our leaderboard. And like I said, it's incomplete because we have a lot of missing data. We have inaccurate data. We're still working on
Mm-hmm.
that. Any feedback is more than
Right
welcome.
now, right now, the 2021 leaderboard only shows the rockets we have accurate data for.
Yeah, yeah. So
So and
more,
that's 14.
yeah. So more rocket might be added in the future. So that being said, I want to thank everyone for joining us. This was really great. Thanks, Will, for helping me out with the live stream and for joining the discussion. Thank you, Cameron, as well,
No problem.
for the very in-depth discussion that we had. This was
And great
really
to be
great.
here.
Yeah. And thanks to all of you, chat, for joining me and the rest of us. And we will see you hopefully very soon for the next State of the Game event. Bye bye.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.